Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
VR Junkies is a virtual reality arcade. We specialize in all things VR, from the simple phone-based headsets to cutting-edge full-body motion systems. Check us out at the Coronado Mall. VR Junkies.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Our interns here at Proview Sports Network get pretty competitive. Rivalries are real.
All day with you two, jeez.
Football's back, right here on Proview Sports Network. All the best rivalries, all the best action, every game on Proview Sports Network, Comcast 26, and the game of the week on My 50 TV.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Altitude Sports Grill is where Albuquerque's sports fans won't miss a game. With locally crafted brews on tap and refreshingly crisp cocktails. Located in Hotel Cascada, Albuquerque residents find a staycation worth staying for. Catching Lobo sports, enjoying a beer on the beach, or wiping out, Hotel Cascada is home to your urban adventure. Affordable guest rooms, no-hassle water park parties, and much more.
Looking for some exhilarating fun? It's at All Out Zone. All Out Zone showcases Nerf dart tag games from team elimination battles to human versus zombies, pitting 2 teams against each other in fun, organized chaos with trained referees, music, and a full arsenal of Nerf blasters. You need team parties, birthday parties. We can customize the party to fit your needs. Visit us at the Coronado Mall. Give us a call, 505-444-6964. All Out Zone.
And welcome everybody here to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galletti, joined by Ed Nunez. Aldeni Iwani is our fine director, and we are going to be talking a plethora of high school football. We bring in Ed Nunez, and Ed, I'll tell you what, it's here a week from tomorrow, a week from Wednesday. The 23rd of August is the first game of the season.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, and when August rolls around, you always think of 2 days, and the smell of freshly cut grass and the whole thing. And I guess the Journal, I've been reading as many preseason polls and cutting out the articles because that's what Coach Ottman did last year, and he had them all in a plastic bag, so whenever he did color commentary, he was ready to talk about whatever team was playing. A lot of new coaches. I think one of the things that I do want to mention is Highland has a new coach in Philip Lovato. And a couple of the Highland Hornets came by where I work at, or ex-Highland Hornets, I should say, and they're going back to the Delaware T. They're going back to running that offense. And I asked them, do you have the personnel? What do you think? And it's going to be interesting, at least from the Highland standpoint, because that offense, believe me when I tell you that it won a lot of games back in the day. Now, double wing set, totally, running, predicated on a running offense, a couple of bootlegs here and there. But when they said that, now here the thing is, you can wax nostalgic about what used to work, and I understand why they're doing that. I do. Hopefully it works out for the Hornets, who've only won, I guess, 3 games the last 3 years.
Right.
And this is a program that used to be a pretty powerful program and was well respected throughout the whole state. Now, I'm partial to Highland because I'm a former Hornet. I just want them to come back, and have some success and win some games, because it's been a long time since we've seen Highland win any kind of games consistently. So we'll see. I think that kind of piqued my interest when I saw that. I'm like, and again, some of the guys that came by were good players for Highland. So when they mentioned that, I'm like, okay, I had to reach back in the archives of my brain to remember that. and so we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But every day in the Journal, there's a new, they had Volcano Vista, Sandia, Manal today, I believe, Bernalillo. So I've been catching Del Norte. I've been catching a lot of those previews in the Journal.
Well, here's the thing that you were talking about with Highland. Personnel to run the Delaware T. I know Bob Davey was questioned when he went from the passing offense to the triple option. Look how that's worked out. So if you have the right personnel, maybe Highland's on to something.
I'll tell you what, I think that's a great point. I talked to Jared Chester about that on Saturday on 610 about where the triple option is with the Lobos right now. And I remember when Coach Loxley was here and we were promised all kinds of scoring. They're going to add another digit to the scoreboard. That never occurred. So when they went to a running game with Bob Davey, and I'll get back to Highland here in a second, I was kind of hoping they'd spread it out and open it up. Everyone's doing that, right?
A lot of people in town were hoping.
Right. But I'll tell you one thing. There
was a lot of resistance to him changing to that offense. But a few years later, look where it is.
Jared Chester and I talked about that on Saturday. They're going to get their yards. I love it. And now, they may throw a little bit more this year. They'll never go 25 of 50 for 350 yards. Right. That's not their game. But you know what? As far as the ball handling, the fakes, and the backs that they have, I love it.
Yeah.
So going back to Highland, back in the day, I can remember the backs that they had and how successful they were. They made some state runs, but you remember, here's the thing. You have to have depth. You have to have numbers. The numbers are down everywhere, and Highland hasn't had the numbers the last couple of years, but still, as a former Hornet, I'm hoping for success for the Highland program. And really everybody, but Highland I'm keeping an eye on because they've been down for so long. Former Highland head coach Gary Sanchez, who does color with us once in a while. He does color with me and color with you.
Right.
And he's funny because he did a game last year, and Highland fumbled. And Gary, just for a minute, forgot that he's a color commentator and not the coach of the Highland Hornets anymore. So he says, well, I hope they get it back. And I'm like kind of nudging him, so it was kind of funny because Gary, if you think of Highland,
right,
you think of Gary Sanchez, man, track coach, right, Hall of Fame track coach, by the way, him and his father. You think of a football coach, you think of a teacher, a guy that gave 27 or 30 years of his life to Highland. So, I know he's still hoping for success for Highland, and that's just one team that kind of, there's others, West Mesa, there's a bunch of other teams that caught my eye. Volcano Vista, Jordan Dickey, they talked about Jordan Dickey in the paper the other day. He's already getting scholarship offers. So I guess there's a lot of things, Scott, as the season winds around. Does Rio Rancho, how far do they drop off? Do they still have the depth? And losing Josh Foley and several other good players. But one thing about them, and is Coach Barrera, their offensive coordinator, who I don't think gets enough credit. That guy's offensive blueprint every game impresses the heck out of me every game.
Yep.
Every game. Of course, he had the players, right? He did. He had the players. Sometimes they use Josh Foley as a decoy, bubble screen the other way. Their offensive game plan always amazes me, always.
We always go this time of year into these shows with a format, and we're always open to kind of switching off the format. And since we talked about Highland, they were going to be later in the program, but I wanted, because you're a former Highland grad and all that good stuff, I wanted to talk a little bit about Highland. You mentioned Coach Lovato, 1-8 last year, and it's one of those situations where we always, every time you and I have talked about Highland, you talk about the numbers. What needs to be done and what can be done unless you recruit players from all over the place? Because that's the one thing. You look at Highland, you look at some other schools that the numbers are down. How do you get those numbers back up?
Here's the thing. You know what? One of my friends, Corey Malone, who used to play offensive guard and bleeds blue and gold even more than me. Corey Malone is just a Highland Hornet through and through. So he came by the center the other day where I work at, and we talked for 25, 30 minutes. He came with Dean Lane, who used to be a running back for Highland as well. We talked about the redistricting that happened back in the day. You know, the base kids were taken away from Highland, and believe me when I tell you this, that Highland, when I was there, and it's a long time ago, I get it. Now, track and football, there's the numbers there because you have these base kids. They're amazing athletes, by the way. Some of them come out and you're like, wow. So Highland really benefited from having a lot of base athletes.
They have athletes now.
They do. They do.
It's just they don't have the depth. It's not that they don't have the athletes, because they do in every sport.
But I think the depth and the numbers being down. So when they went to redistricting, La Cueva took some, Del Norte took some, Albuquerque High took some. So that really hurt Highland. I don't know that they'll ever, they'll have to go back to redistricting again to get the numbers that they once had. It'll never be the same. There's no way they'll ever get the numbers that they had. And plus, you have to look at it like this too, and you're smart, you know this. A lot of parents think, where's the best place I can send my player, my son or daughter to get a scholarship? And right now, it's Cleveland, Volcano Vista. The power is shifted to the west side as far as.
That's very true.
So, there's a lot of parents that are thinking, if my kid is going to get a look, I want him to go to the most school that has the most visibility, and right now it's not Highland. I hate to say that.
And another thing, reading James Yodis's previews that amazed me, Albuquerque High's numbers are going to be up this year. You know why?
What?
They're not fielding a JV team.
Oh, wow.
I guess they didn't field a JV team last year, according to the article either, and I didn't know about that. But this year, they're not fielding a JV team, so they're hoping to have a little more depth there. So is that what it's come down to?
I think it has. Rio Grande. If you look at Rio Grande, they're starting.
That's another one.
New head coach this year. Their numbers were, and that's tough because you have to beg kids to come out over there, and so I think. When you ask that, back in the day, at least when I went to school and even in the 90s, the numbers were there. So I don't know people's parents, again, with all the concussions, things like that, if people are saying if it's already starting, you're seeing a decline in numbers. Albuquerque, let me tell you something. I think, you and I will agree, Raul Pavila, it was a heck of a tough quarterback last year. He graduated, but that kid stood in the pocket and took some pops.
Yeah, he did.
And I would be broadcasting the game. I was thinking, wow, that's it. He's not coming back. And
you and I would talk about that.
That kid was
the
tough.
games that I saw and the games that you saw, he got beat up and he'd get right back up.
Oh my goodness, he took some pops. He finally got one where he couldn't come back. I think he dislocated some ribs. But when I would look at that kid, I was thinking, man, oh my gosh. I think I said it on the air a couple times. I was like, oh my gosh, Pavila took another huge hit, but he'd get taped up, come out. They didn't have the numbers last year, but if you look at Santiago Williams, they had some difference makers, some explosive players. Santiago Williams is looking to go to a JC somewhere. So they didn't have the numbers, but they were competitive until they came up against programs that had more numbers and more depth and just more talent. But they weren't too bad. I kind of enjoyed watching the Bulldogs play last year. I really did.
We're going to step aside here and take a break. And when we come back, we will start talking about the schedules for both the overall season and particular teams. We'll break down a couple of teams here on the Sports Desk.
for you right here on Proview Sports Network as well. So here's a handoff to the outside. Blockers in front to the 5. Diving towards the end zone. Touchdown.
Still working on getting the number of our...
Diving forward to the end zone. In. Touchdown. Left to right, and a handoff to the near side, and look, a lot of room. Look out, blocking a seal to the edge. 25-20 and gone. First play from scrimmage. You can't write it up any better than that. That's a touchdown. As going to take it, and he's going to make his way into the end zone for a West Mesa touchdown. Elijah Demas. That's big time stuff, huh?
Yeah, he's going to be great.
Gecko's Bar and Tapas, a proud supporter of Proview Networks. It's been a fan favorite spot for food lovers and sports fans. With not one, but 2 great locations, including outdoor patio, an atmosphere you won't want to miss. Gecko's, off Academy and in Nob Hill.
Our interns here at Proview Sports Network get pretty competitive. Rivalries are real.
So with the big matchup between the El Dorado Eagles and the La Cueva Bears, time to make my pick here on the Proview Rundown. I'm going to go with the El Dorado Eagles. You know, I'm going to change my decision, and I'm going to go with the La Cueva Bears. They're feeling it. All right, hey, calm down. Guys, you do it every time. This is ridiculous. You know what? I'm going to be in Macon.
Football's back right here on Proview Sports Network. All the best rivalries, all the best action, every game on Proview Sports Network, Comcast 26, and the game of the week on My 50 TV.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Ladera Golf Course. Opened in 1980, Ladera features a full 18 including spacious greens, a large driving range, roomy practice putting greens, and 4 large lakes. Surrounding Ladera, beautiful views of the Sandia Mountains to the east and volcanoes to the west. Ladera is a challenging city-owned course with the longest playing yardage of any other city courses. For weekend tee times and more information, call 505-836-4449.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
And welcome back here to the Sports Desk. Scott Coletti along with Ed Nunez. We are talking high school sports today, and we're actually talking a wide range of sports, but high school football is what we're going to be concentrating on. First game will be next week on the 23rd. It's hard to believe. Let's take a look at the schedule for week 1 here as we'll get right into it, and a lot of good games coming up, and you see that Atrisco against Monsanto game. That's game number 1.
You know, if you look at that again, Atrisco Heritage with that triple option that they like to run, Coach Patrick Johnson, they've got some Angel Ramirez, the running back from last year. He's back. He's got some speed. He hits that edge. He's gone. And of course, we talked about Monsanto, who really looks like a perennial favorite in 6A, or one of the favorites, because there's always some other teams at the top as well. But Monsanto's got Jordan Bird back and Michael Roybal, a lot of their offensive line. We liked them last year. They lost to a better team in the playoffs, but I'll tell you what, I have my eye on the Monarchs from last year. They should be a very formidable competition for any team that they face this year.
That Thursday game, Del Norte, West Mesa. Then you go to Friday, and you've got some interesting games. You have Oñate at Cleveland, El Dorado on the road at the Field of Dreams against Las Cruces. Highland, St. Pius will go to the second round of scheduling here, as we'll go to the other Friday games. And Mayfield, Rio Rancho, that one sticks out.
Man. Already, to jump on to start the season, that matchup there is a lot of people are really looking forward. That's going to be a head knocker. That always is. As they go down to Rio Rancho, by the way, to win at that field, it's always tough. But Las Cruces Mayfield, I'm sorry, Scott, they're a formidable opponent as well.
And another good game at the bottom of the screen, my 50 game of the week. That will be Cibola and La Cueva. When those two teams get together, that's always a battle.
Well, Roderick Williams, the Cibola head coach, and Brandon Bach know each other very well, so that should be a very good game. Cibola's got some good players. They had a very tough season, Scott, last year. Losses by 1, by 5. They weren't blown out a lot, but for Coach Williams not making the playoffs, that's very unusual.
How about Albuquerque High going on the road to the Field of Dreams to take on Centennial for the first game? That's going to be a tough one.
Yes, that's always a tough trip for any team.
For anybody, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested, though. I'm kind of interested because Albuquerque High, again, they've got Christian Carruthers back, and he's a very good defensive and offensive lineman, the son of former Albuquerque High Bulldog star Scott Carruthers. So, again, we talk about depth and numbers, though, and being able to compete against teams that are more like you, and we'll have to see how the Bulldogs do down there against Centennial.
We'll move forward now. Look at week 2, some of the games to look forward to, as we went over some of these with Greg Hull, the mayor of Rio Rancho, last week. But since you're the co-host on the show, I wanted to do this with you as well, because obviously you and I doing games, and it's one of those situations where we're going to be seeing a lot of these teams.
No doubt about it. You look at the Cleveland Storm. Angelo Trujillo's back, I believe, and West Mesa and St. Pius. Dave Montoya taking over for the retired San Juan Mendoza at St. Pius, and they've got to start all over. No Drew Ortiz, no Mel D. Herrera. They no Brandon Acala, the defensive end. No one of their linebackers, Isaac Leon. The Leon graduated, so they graduated a lot of their talent. They really did. Pius has to start pretty much from scratch. They still have a playmaker. One of their receivers is back. But as far as having a quarterback like Drew Ortiz and the senior laden squad that they had last year, and believe me, beating Artesia in the state championship, that was a huge task. Artesia had 29 state championships. So Pius Pius has to start all over. But let's see if Dave Montoya, he's a former Pius player and former coach under San Juan Mendoza. Let's see if he's up to the task there.
You see Atrisco at Oñate, Farmington against Del Norte. Let's look at other games on Friday. El Dorado Volcano Vista should be a good one. Valley Sandia, Highland at Belen. That's going to be an interesting game.
For the Hornets to travel to Belen, Belen's had some good success the last couple of years, and it's tough to win down there at Belen. So that's going to be an interesting game. And Judge Chavez has Seguin Oyeku back as the running back for the Vikings. And they mentioned in the paper that he doesn't have a lot of experience. But one thing that Oyeku does have is speed, and he's been there. He's been there last year.
Speed and toughness.
Yes. Oh man, I'll tell you what, Valley.
He's hard to bring down.
So I think having the carries that he did last year will definitely help him. Again, Sandia, kind of rebuilding a little bit themselves. They run heavy team. Kevin Barker likes to run the football quite a bit, so that should be a good matchup there as well, as should El Dorado Volcano Vista. El Dorado coach Charlie Dotson, he's got some, he graduated Devin Sandoval and some good playmakers last year, and Volcano Vista, you and I mentioned Joran Dickey before the show started. He's already getting some scholarship looks. I love their multiple looks that they run on offense. They're missing Cormier and Chris Streets, and they graduated some explosive playmakers as well, so they're kind of rebuilding a little bit too.
And we mentioned Rio Rancho starting with Mayfield. How about them continuing their series with El Paso Americas?
I remember when Americas came here. I did that game with Jim Ottman last year at Rio Rancho, and I still remember that game. Americas 1st and 10 inside the 10, and they're only trailing 14-7. It's the 1st and 10, 1st and goal, I should say. And so they throw a pick. Josh Foley intercepts it, runs it back 99 yards for a touchdown that broke America's back, and that was the game. And then, Rio Rancho only scored one more touchdown. They didn't need any more, and they dominated that game. They did. And the America's coaches, I remember, I asked them for kind of some identification at halftime for some of the numbers we didn't have. And I guess they thought I was a Rio Rancho coach because they didn't want to give me any information. But that's one game that really sticks out is, gosh, I remember that game.
Well, some people call you coach all the time, so,
Yeah, I guess they thought I was a coach for Rio Rancho, man. But that game there is at El Paso this time. So, El Paso Americas has that game circled. They do. They've got that game circled, so that should be an entertaining matchup.
Let's go to the Saturday games in week number 2. And on Saturday, a couple of good ones. You have Las Cruces, Cibola at Community Stadium, Centennial at Manzano at Wilson, and Miyamura against Rio Grande. So some interesting games, and a rare Saturday evening game, Taos and Hope Christian at Milne.
Very rare. You hardly see that. It's usually in the day, and that is a rare game. But Centennial Manzano, if I have to circle a game on that schedule for week 2 on Saturday, I'm looking at that game. Las Cruces and Cibola should be a good game.
Nice to see Milne with a doubleheader.
You know what? You're right.
They used to do those in a day, but since Community Open, you don't see Milne used as much anymore.
Man, I forgot about that. I did. And Milne, again, we've talked about the work that's needed at Milne. That stadium was built in 1951, I believe. I can't remember. I asked somebody out there last year when I was broadcasting a game, and it's a great facility. It's a definitely great facility, but definitely needs some touches and touch-ups. But yeah, you're right. That's the first time in a long time I can remember that doubleheaders out there.
And we'll go forward to week 3 now. And week 3, and there's some good games here, is West Mesa Volcano Vista. That will be the first one on Thursday. Manzano, Cibola, and Los Lunas is playing Del Norte. You have Mayfield against El Dorado. How about Los Lunas coming here to play Del Norte?
I believe they've still got the quarterback, Nick Gerlin. He comes back. Trevor Brohard and Samuels, they move on. And of course, when you lose playmakers like them, but I like Nick Gerlin. I think he's a good quarterback, and they've got a new coach up there at Los Lunas as well, the former Artesia assistant, and Del Norte also lost. Who
likes to spread the field and throw all over the place, by the way.
Right. So Los Lunas moving from a run heavy with Samuels. Now they're going to be passing the ball quite a bit. And Del Norte, they lost Avery C., who, gosh, he was one of my favorite backs in town. He lost a lot of weight last year. He had a great season. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be missing him, and that should be an interesting game as well.
There you see Clovis at Rio Rancho on Friday. Valencia at Artesia. That will be a good one. Belen at Farmington, and Academy on the road at Bernalillo.
I think one of the games I wanted to talk about was Clovis with Cal Fullerton taking over for Eric Roanhouse. And Cal Fullerton, it's been many, many years since we can remember Coach Roanhouse not being there. I can't remember. When I was at Highland, he was at Clovis, and he coached there for 30 years, I believe, a long time. So Cal Fullerton taking over there at Clovis, and it's a new look for the Wildcats, and they've got a new leader. So that we'll have to see again. Coach Roanhouse is ingrained there. That's a Hall of Famer there. So we'll have to see how Cal Fullerton does up there at Clovis.
And everyone knows Cal Fullerton. That's the team that beat the Lobos back in the day, right?
You don't think I remember that game, man? I still remember that game. For me, that's the worst Lobo loss that that I ever suffered through. So yes, everyone remembers Cal Fullerton. Very good comeback there, Scott.
Wrong Cal Fullerton, but I've already seen that joke used in the paper. So
no, you're right. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the Saturday games. Hope Christian, St. Pius, very interesting. Cleveland on the road against Las Cruces. That's going to be an excellent game. And then you have Oñate and Sandia.
Yeah, again, Cleveland at Las Cruces going to the Field of Dreams. One of the things I wonder about the Storm, and they, for the last 2 years, let's face it, they won the state championship one year and they had a fine season last year. They dominated both lines of scrimmage. They had the depth, they had the size, they had the players. I wonder coming into this year where they're at with both sides of the line. Because again, with Coach Ridenhour does a great job out there. I really like him a lot, and they've got a culture of winning at Cleveland. You go out there. And they've got a field on campus. I don't know how many high schools, I guess a lot in Texas. But if you're not impressed with those facilities when you go out there, and Coach Ridenhour, like I said, he does such a good job. He's got great assistants, good game plans, but I wonder where they're at both lines of scrimmage. Because when you can control the line of scrimmage the way that they did the last 2 years, you're going to have a lot of success.
Absolutely. We'll hold off weeks 4 and 5 until next week, as that will be the opener of the season next week. We'll look ahead, but one game in week 5 that I do want to talk about, because we talked about it a lot last year when they played the game, and that's the game between Cleveland and Artesia. They played at the Bulldog Bowl last year, big crowd, and now Artesia comes here to Cleveland. Better get your tickets now.
Yeah, no kidding. And we talked about this. You and I talked about this last year. I can remember talking about Cleveland going down to Artesia last year. All the talk in the coffee shops and breakfast places at Artesia about Cleveland going down there, and Cleveland prevailed. That's going to be a head knocker of a game, and it was last year. And so when you talk Artesia Bulldogs, and I remember going down to the field with Richard Tripp before we did the state championship with Pius and Artesia, and there's that championship swagger, that championship cool that they had. Honestly, it's not cockiness. It's just, hey, we've won 29. What do you want? And I remember thinking that, like, I felt it right away. And although Pius did prevail, Pius punched him in the mouth and won that game. But Artesia has that tradition. So when you mention Artesia, it's like mentioning Hobbs in high school basketball. People right away like, Hobbs, they start shuddering right away. So I love that rivalry. I love it. I love that.
And here's the other thing, Ed. Talking to some of the Artesia people over the summer and during the spring and everything, they've got that game circled on their calendar.
I'm sure they do.
Even though they're coming down here, and you talk about coffee shops. Greg Hull, the mayor of Rio Rancho, last week talked about how big it was last year. He said, in Artesia, a lot of Cleveland fans went into the coffee shops. Now the Artesia fans are going to be doing the same here, so you're going to see a lot of burnt orange, I guess is their correct colors, and you're going to see a lot of that color. But Cleveland, I got a feeling they'll be favored in that game, but it's going to be another battle.
Oh, you're right. Again, tradition against, Cleveland they're not nearly, they don't have the tradition that Artesia does, but Artesia doesn't forget things, and Cleveland went down there, and you can bet the Storm let them know as they were leaving town. I'm sure they let them know, hey, we came in here to your house. And when you mention Bulldog Bowl, again, people are like, what? They start trembling. They do. Yeah. Bulldog Bowl, how many championships has Artesia won? We mentioned 29.
Well, I've talked to folks who, were parents of the kids that played and still play for Artesia, and they had a bitter taste in their mouth with both that loss and the St. Pius loss.
I'll tell you one thing. I can understand the Cleveland loss. You go down there, you don't want to lose at home. You rarely do. They rarely do. I'm going to tell you this: Pius was the better team by far that day. Right. So a lot of people.
And they said that too, but it still leaves a bitter taste. But they admitted, hey, on that day, St. Pius was the better team.
I mean, you've won 29.
Which I gave them credit for, too, for saying that. But they did admit that.
You know how it is. You win 29, you expect to win. You think you should win, and sometimes you don't, and that's the way life is. But, that they're that competitive, wow, again, that's part of the legend of Artesia football.
We will take a break, come back with more. We're going to delve into team schedules and talk about the teams when we come back on the Sports Desk.
What do these interns even do on their break, man?
I don't even know. It's probably way too crazy.
Football's back right here on Proview Sports Network. All the best rivalries, all the best action, every game on Proview Sports Network, Comcast 26, and the game of the week on My 50 TV.
What do these interns even do on their break, man?
I don't even know.
Garden Sort's Team Sales is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game. Garden Schwartz Team Sales features fine products and apparel from Wilson, Schutt Sports, Speedline, and Russell Athletics. We offer custom embroidery and screen printing services for all of your school or club needs, from team uniforms to school leather jackets. Specializing in all sports and serving all communities, from big schools to small schools, from up north to down south, or all points in between. Garden Schwartz Team Sales. For great prices, friendly staff, and quality products, call Garden Schwartz Team Sales today at 1-800-880-7767. That's 1-800-880-7767. Since 1939, Garden Schwartz Team Sales is a proud supporter of New Mexico youth athletics.
You know, we try to let all of our interns do everything here at Proview Sports Network. Sometimes it just doesn't pan out. Hey everybody, welcome to the Proview Rundown. I'm Adam Deal. What a big week in football, week 3. As you all know,
Cut.
Come on, this Eagle, jeez.
Football's back right here on Proview Sports Network. All the best rivalries, all the best action, every game on Proview Sports Network, Comcast 26, and the game of the week on My 50 TV. Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewNetworks.com to buy your DVD today.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Hey everyone, Adam Deal here with Proview Networks. Extreme Clean is a proud sponsor and supporter of Proview Networks and all high school sports athletics. Owner Mike McLean and Extreme Clean specialize in carpet cleaning for apartment, realty, business, and residential clients. With over 20 years experience, attention to detail and quality customer service matters. For more information, give them a call, 505-221-6440, Extreme Clean.
I'm Scott Clutty along with Ed Nunez. We are talking high school sports. Alden Iowani, our fine director, doing a great job as always. We're keeping him busy here today, and we are going to start looking a little more ahead in the schedules. We're going to weave those last 2 weeks that we were going to talk about, as you got week number 3. That is the end of that, so we'll go to week 4 here, and there you go. You got La Cueva, West Mesa, Belen against Rio Grande. Then you've got Albuquerque High against El Dorado, Sandia, Trisco, and moving ahead, you got a good one, Centennial and Cleveland.
Again, a lot of good games there. Centennial coming down. Anytime Centennial comes down with Coach Ocampo, that guy's built a good program there, the former Manzano head coach. So anytime that Centennial comes down to play a team in Albuquerque, you can expect a head-knocking affair. So look, that should be a really good game there, Centennial at Cleveland in week 4. And you could look at Volcano Vista at Mayfield at the Field of Dreams, should also be an entertaining matchup as well. So those are 2 good games there that I'm looking at. And maybe Hyden and Valencia, those are 2 teams that in week 4, we don't know. Valencia's, again, they're a run-heavy team too, Scott, and they struggle. They've struggled with numbers. They've struggled with at the quarterback position last year. I thought they had a good running quarterback. They weren't so much, they're not a passing team. I thought they struggled a little bit with numbers and offensive line strength, things like that. So that could be a game where both teams in week 4 might be looking for their first victory. We'll see.
And Saturday in week 4 has these games: Alamogordo against St. Pius, Valley at Las Cruces, and Rio Grande at Oñate.
At Rio Rancho Oñate, that should be a good game as well.
Then you got week number 5, and this is where it gets kind of good. You see that Artesia-Cleveland game that I was talking about.
Oh, man. Early in the season, at Artesia-Cleveland, that's September 22nd, so the weather shouldn't have turned bad then yet as far as the, it's still being warm outside, although sometimes in September in Albuquerque you never know. But, yeah, that's a game that you circle right there. And Valley El Dorado, that should be a competitive matchup as well. So yeah, that's a game that Red circled, Artesia Cleveland.
Other games have Friday night. You have some good ones. St. Pius on the road against Lovington. You got Piedra Vista against West Mesa.
Piedra Vista's had some success last year, but kind of started out, 4-0, 5-0?
I think they were 5-0, and then they got in the district and had trouble.
And we talked about them. We talked about them as in the rankings. Because
they had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, at 5-0, though, we were talking, I remember you and I and Steve Davis were talking about them, and we thought that that they might do some damage, but come district time, of course that district that they're in is just, it's a bear, it's a beast. We're interested to see, and again with West Mesa, with Ron McMath, they've got some players coming back. They struggled last year. Gosh, they made some plays, but at the end of the game, they couldn't finish. I remember a game against Albuquerque High. They started out well. They just couldn't finish. So I kind of wonder what Coach McMath has there at West Mesa this year.
Take a look at the Saturday games in week number 5, and Saturday in week number 5 looks like this. 2 games. Rio Rancho Manzano, a very good one. Could be a scene setter for the playoffs.
You know what? Look at that game. And I remember Manzano went up last year to Rio Rancho, and we thought we might see a better game, and I think that's when Jordan Bird was playing quarterback because of the injury to quarterback Michael Roybal. And Jordan Bird, every time he touches the ball, is a threat to score. I think he did score on some long runs, but the overall power of Rio Rancho, and we saw that they won the state championship, was just too much that day. Let's see what happens this one. That's a game that the Monarchs, that they have circled. They do. But one game at a time, because Coach Adcox is telling them, look, the road to the Blue Trophy, you can't just say, we're going to play 5 games and we'll play. Wait to play Rio Rancho. There's a lot of trouble, a lot of minefields before you get there.
Coach Adcox, a very proud man and very, very successful.
You know what? I have a lot of respect for him and his program. They built a good program there. And again, he'd be the first one to tell you, we said this last year, you and I did, that it looks good from Manzano. Did they work during the summer? Did kids work on getting better, getting stronger? What did they work on? Because you just can't go into the next season thinking we're going to win because we had success last year. A lot of people are already circling them, but they know the Monarchs are going to come loaded. And so everyone they have an X on their back, even though they're not the defending champs. Rio Rancho is, but people know how good Jordan Bird is. They know he's going to San Diego State. So when they play Manzano, they've got some things to prove.
Let's break down a couple of teams now. We're going to start with El Dorado first. The El Dorado Eagles last year, they were 5-6, losing to Clovis in the first round of the playoffs. Charlie Dotson, 11th year, he is 79-40.
Man. That's a great record. That really is. Coach Dotson, again, one of the former wrestling coach as well. And utmost respect. One of the things I want to say this about Coach Dotson, we did the coaching awards here a couple years ago, and they gave him the award, Coach of the Year. He gets up there and he says, you know what, I'm not the Coach of the Year, Coach Ridenauer is. And he stepped off and gave the award to Coach Ridenauer. And I remember calling Coach Dotson and leaving a message saying, man, that was class, man. That was class. He did it with grace and class. He says, I'm not the Coach of the Year, Coach Ridenauer is. So that's my memories of Coach Dotson.
Gabe Smith, the junior, will lead them a quarterback this year.
Okay, they've had some, you know what, if you look at the quarterback position, going back to Zach Gentry, and, I can't remember the quarterback after that, but he was pretty good too. They've had some good success there at the quarterback position, so I would expect the quarterback that they have now to be not as good, but Charlie Dotson develops good quarterbacks.
Take a look at what they have schedule-wise as we will break down a little bit the El Dorado schedule, as we'll see that momentarily, and they have some good games coming up here. They got the opener at Las Cruces, Volcano Vista, Mayfield, Albuquerque High, Valley. Then they play Cibola before getting into district. Nah, not too tough, right?
Yeah. And I guess the unknown on that schedule is Clovis. Clovis, usually when you see Clovis on the schedule, it's a It's a pretty tough game, and it still should be. But with the new program, new coach there, we don't. And the Wildcats have been, to be frankly speaking, have been down the last couple of years. I don't think they made. Did they make the playoffs last year? I can't remember. But they haven't had the success they normally have, and we'll have to see how Cal Fullerton does out there.
Let's go now to Sandia as we will look at the Sandia Matadors, and they are our next team. Last year, they struggled 3-7. Kevin Barker, 18th season. All he's done is 105-84.
Again, a great record for Coach Barker. Run-heavy team. They had some injuries last year.
Yeah.
Their defensive end, Ben Bertram, who they expected a lot of things from, broke a leg, and he wasn't available for most of the
Jones,
season.
a running back, is another one. He's a senior this year.
Oh, I like him. I like him a lot.
Well, they were rolling on the running game until he went down.
Oh, when he went down, that defensively, Bertram's injury crippled them defensively.
Yeah.
And Jones, because this guy Jones, I'm talking about, has the speed, the vision. He can take it to the house on any given moment. And so when he went down, that really hurt them. Really did.
And Coach Barker, very interesting in James Yodis's article, went to, hey, they weren't putting out enough effort. So they had a lot of camaraderie meetings this year to kind of break up the monotony and get them back as a team.
I think that's one of the things that sometimes you have to change things. If you look at Coach Weir, what he's doing with the Lobos right now, with the basketball program, he's changed everything. And I think of Herman Boone and Remember the Titans. We're going to change the way we eat, the way we think, the way we do everything. So I think Coach Barker, sometimes if you, as a head coach, and he's been there, you mentioned 105-84. He's been there a long time. Sometimes you have to think, what can I do that's different outside the box? Because they're not responding. They didn't respond last year. Our record's 3-7. So what can we do that's different? I'm kind of interested to see how Sandia comes out. Coach Barker's a veteran coach. He knows what buttons to push. It's just a matter of the players respond and how they respond to that.
Before we look at Sandia's schedule, I forgot to mention El Dorado only with 3 returners on offense and 3 on defense. Kevin Barker's team has 4 on offense, 5 on defense.
That's a little bit better. Not a lot of numbers for each team. That's El Dorado might struggle a little bit because you got to get line continuity, blocking assignments, things like that. Those are important. Communication, you have to develop all of those. But Coach Barker, it's going to he's a young squad, but with the return of Jones at running back, that should help them. That should.
Let's go now to the schedule for Sandia, and it's manageable at the beginning of the year as they play at Rio Grande, then they play Valley, Oñate. Those will be home games, the Valley and Oñate game at Wilson Stadium. Then you got a Trisco Heritage Cibola before going to Rio Rancho. Then it's district play.
I think one of the games that they start off with, 2 of them. Now, Judge Chavez and Valley were 4-6 last year, and I don't know what kind of depth they have. He said that their numbers are down. They've got some players. I like what they did last year. I thought their quarterback Isaiah Chavez was tough. Tough. He really was. They didn't have the numbers and the size up front. That hurt them. But if you look at Sandia going in, they could be 2-0, or those are games. If you're Coach Barker, you're thinking we have a chance to win these 2 games. We do. So I don't think it's a bad, maybe perceived start for the Matadors. We'll have to see how they do. And then you got Oñate, and then your schedule gets considerably tougher. Trisco Heritage, they're always tough with Coach Johnson. Cibola, Rio Rancho. Then look at how they finished, Scott. Rio Rancho, El Dorado, La Cueva, at Clovis, at Manzano. Man, that's a murderer's row schedule to finish the season.
Yeah, that gets kind of tough, doesn't it?
No, man. You know what? And you have to wonder, out of those games that you're playing, the last 4 or 5 games, how many injuries you sustain? Do you have the numbers, the depth? You just hope that you get out of those games unscathed as far as injuries go, and that they're not injuries to your key position players.
Let's take a quick look at La Cueva's schedule here, and the La Cueva Bears, they're a team that is always known for their defense.
Brandon Back does a great job. He really does. Actually, they spread it out last year with quarterback Chris Campbell on offense. They had a new offensive coordinator, and they usually played it really close to the vest, almost vanilla, somewhat boring. Last year, they spread it out a little bit on offense, but their defense is where they make their living. You're right.
Let's look at their schedule right now as a couple of good games stick right out. That Cibola game, that's going to be a big one in week number 1. Then they play Cleveland at Wilson on a Thursday, go to Centennial, play West Mesa, Highland, Albuquerque, and then it's Manzano to open up district.
Well, you look at Cibola. Look at Cleveland, Cibola, and Centennial. Those are 3 tough games to open the season for La Cueva. You have somewhat of a respite with West Mesa, although Coach McMath would disagree. Then they've got Highland at Albuquerque High, then Manzano. Okay, then you got Sandia, El Dorado, and Clovis. If you look at that, the last 3 games of their schedule are winnable games for La Cueva. They really are. So it's the middle of the schedule, or the top of the schedule right there, that's kind of tough.
Absolutely. So now let's go to Manzano, another team that is going to be highly touted this year with Mr. Jordan Bird. And this is a team that's going to be exciting to watch.
By all accounts, Jordan Bird, as we mentioned, they're going to play him at quarterback, at running back, wherever he's at.
And by the way, they have 3 quarterbacks coming back from last year.
Michael Royball's back.
Yeah.
We can't forget Ivy Sod. Ivy Sod is a sophomore running back last year, got 1,000 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
That kid is tough.
He was fun to watch.
I really like him. He gets the dirty runs. And
I was going to say, he's the one that runs over people. He's the one that drags people. And Jordan Bird, he's the one that just runs by people.
Right. So you know what? That's a great 1-2 combination. I really have a lot of respect for Ivy Sod. He got the tough yards.
Now, the guy running by people, Jordan Bird, don't mistake that with him not being a tough kid, because he'll run you down too.
Man, you know what? Again, the San Diego State bound Jordan Bird. The Lobos wanted him. A whole bunch of teams wanted him. This kid is a special athlete. I believe he's been the 100 meters champion 3 years in a row. Fastest kid in the state, right? I believe.
Right.
So every time he touches the ball, defenses have to plan for him. And then you got Ivy Sod, and they've got Andrew Erickson. I don't know if he graduated or not, the wide receiver. I'm not sure. But they've got some good receivers and some good quarterbacks. And the other thing is this: they've got depth on both sides of the ball as far as defensive linemen and offensive linemen, and we know how important that is. If you're able to control the line of scrimmage, you're in business.
Look at Manzano's schedule real quickly, and they have some tough games in the early going of the season, and it's going to be fun to watch them at Trisco to open up the year, and then Centennial at Cibola at Community Stadium, Del Norte, then a big matchup on a Saturday afternoon against Rio Rancho at Wilson.
Well, it's going to be a game that everybody wants to see, no doubt about that. And Trisco Heritage and Centennial they lead off with at Cibola, and Del Norte. Rio Rancho it should be the first big test that they have, although Centennial and Aaron Ocampo, that's always going to, and a Trisco Heritage, again, I think when you defend them, you defend that triple option. You have to stay disciplined in your lanes. You have a lot of assignments there. But I think defensively, the Monarchs could definitely hold their own as well.
We'll take a quick break here, go over some other teams when we come back here on the Sports Desk.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
And we are back here on the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galletti along with Ed Nunez. Alden Iowani, our fine director, doing a great job as always. And we were kind of going through different avenues here to get to a mean, so we were kind of messing with Alden here on the schedule, but now we're back on schedule. Volcano Vista is the next team that we're going to talk about. Chad Wallen, the head coach, he is in his 10th year, 47-51. Kind of hard to believe that he's below 500. Last year, 7-4, lost to Mayfield in a stunner. They were blown out in the first round. They have 4 offensive, 4 defensive, but you mentioned earlier they don't have a lot of the weapons that they had.
If you look at the weapons that they had, and Dylan Gassaway, the quarterback, David Cormier, Chris Streets, Abraham Shops, that was a fast team. that could really strike it, from any part of the field. So missing Cormier, he's gone. Shops is gone. Chris Streets is gone. Gassaway, the quarterback, is gone. But one player that we did mention is Jordan Dickey. So Jordan Dickey is a player that Coach Wallen, I can't believe he's under 500 either. I can't believe that. Is a player that he's going to definitely count on to make some noise for Volcano Vista. One thing I like about Volcano Vista was their multiple look offense, and I thought Gassaway did a heck of a job. Well, when they had a problem, and I remember I looked forward to the game last year, I believe when they played Rio Rancho. I thought, you know what, and I talked to one of the Volcano Vista assistants. He was very confident going into the game, and it just didn't work out. But Rio Rancho had more talent. It's not because Volcano Vista wasn't any good. That's how good Rio Rancho was. You know, so they competed, but when they competed against the teams like Cleveland and Rio Rancho, they struggled.
Let's take a look now at Cibola. Speaking of struggling, for the first time since Rod Williams took over, they struggled last year. They were 3-7. He is 22-21 overall. Hard to believe this is his 5th year.
You know, if you look at some of the players that he's coached, Blair Manley, Oscar Chapman, Sam Garcia. There's been some good Cibola players there. They're really, I remember Oscar Chapman was one of my favorite running backs. He'd run you over. He would run you over, man. He really would. And Blair Manley's playing for the Lobos now. So, you know, Coach, and the thing about Coach Williams is he's such a class act, gracious gentleman. Anytime you ask him for stats or things about his team, he's more than forthcoming. So, you know, he's right there around the 500 mark. And I think for Cibola, missing the playoffs last year, 3-7, they lost some tough games. I think Rod Williams' focus, he might have changed it like Kevin Barker did. Maybe he thought, this isn't working, let's try something different. So I'm kind of interested to see how the Cougars come out and play this year.
Take a look at Albuquerque High now, and Albuquerque High is a team that last year 5-5 after back-to-back 4-5 seasons, and you know, last year it seemed like it was a down year, but they still were 500.
They had some injuries at the end of the year with the quarterback, at the quarterback position, and when the quarterback got hurt, that really hurt them. But I think if you look at Coach Johnson, I believe, is it Coach Johnson?
Tim Johnson, second year.
So you remember one thing about Albuquerque High. 3 years ago, they were in the midst of a 49-game losing streak.
Right.
So if you think about where that program was, where it is now, that's as we say in Spanish, a milagro. That's a miracle. Right. So you really got to give Coach Johnson a lot of credit there. I really do, because you know, again, when you lose 49 straight, then you win a couple here, 4-5, and then 5-5. You know what that says about him and the program. Now we'll see if they even out or if they keep getting better. But remember, we talked about numbers and depth. And Albuquerque High and those schools really don't have that. But I love the way the Bulldogs compete. I love the way they compete. I really do.
And remember, I mentioned Albuquerque. It was pointed out, no JV team. So a lot of the players that would play JV will be on varsity.
You're right. So you know, maybe that'll help as far as numbers, experience, development.
Well, it'll help develop the younger players quicker.
I think Coach Johnson has done a great job, kind of under the radar. People kind of forgot where that program was and where it is now.
Let's look at Patrick Johnson's Atrisco Heritage team while we have some time here. Last year, they were 4-6. They lost to Manzano in the first round of the playoffs, and the Jaguars will have that first game of the year, and guess who they open up with? Manzano.
Manzano, you know, right off the bat with Coach Johnson, and we mentioned Angel Ramirez is back. I like Angel Ramirez. If he gets a corner, he's gone. They struggled. You know what they struggled with? Coach Ottman, you got the schedule here. Coach Jim Ottman, the former San Diego head coach, and I did a couple of Atrisco games. They struggle with penalties badly. You know, so 2nd and 5 turns into 2nd and 15. Then they gain 10 yards, holding 2nd and so they struggle with a lot of penalties. The discipline as far, let's see what Coach Johnson's worked on, but that is one thing that really hurt them last year was penalties.
And the last team that we'll look at right now here this week, and that's your Highland Hornets.
Now we mentioned that new head coach in Phil Lovato. He's going to go back to the Delaware T. They do have some talent there at the quarterback position, and they open up. And that's interesting to me with Pius, because Pius is, again, no San Juan Mendoza, Dave Montoya, new coaches at both schools, and both lost a lot from last year. Of course, Pius was the defending champion. They could lose a little bit more. Highland 1-8. And, so if you look at the Hornets schedule there at Valencia, again, that game might be key to both teams. We'll have to see. But again, I have to look and see. Coach Lovato he's 42 years old, a former Hornet, very excited about what he thinks the team might be able to do. But again, the Delaware team, I'm just anxious to see that. I have such great memories of watching that when I was a student there, of course, in later years as well. So we'll have to see how that works out for Highland.
3 returners on offense, 3 on defense. By the way, Patrick Johnson's Atrisco Heritage team, get a load of this. They have 10 returners on offense, 7 on defense.
We mentioned that last year. Okay, Coach Ottman and I did mention that this year should be, again, the discipline, the penalties, hopefully they clean that up.
And Albuquerque, by the way, even though they lost a lot, 5 returners on both sides.
That's not bad either. That's not bad.
So as we close things out, Ed Nunez, what would you like to say?
Well, Scott, you know what? I think I'm just looking forward to another football season. I really enjoy covering high school.
You know what we're going to say, though? We're going to say, hey, we're going to have selection seating show here in a couple of weeks. It happens every year.
But then it'll be time for basketball. So, yeah, I guess just enjoy.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, that's okay. Enjoy it. Yeah, that's the message. Enjoy it.
Any games that you're looking forward to?
I think, just this as you mentioned, I'm always the one rivalry game that I always look forward to is Cleveland and Rio Rancho.
Mm-hmm.
That's a head knocker, man.
Right.
So that game there, there's many. Every game that I'm at that I get to cover is an honor and a privilege. I love it, to see high school young kids still competing at the amateur level. But I think that game there, Cleveland and Rio Rancho, that's always a great rivalry right there in the community.
Well, we're going to have actual previews next week as we get set for the opener a week from tomorrow at Community Stadium. Should be a good one. Atrisco and Monzano. For Alden Iowani, our fine director, and Ed Nunez, I'm Scott Galletti. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.
Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.